Good evening. I call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. The date is Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. The time is 7 o'clock. I ask you to stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Begman. Here. Commissioner McGraw.
Here.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Here.
Commissioner Heck.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
All six present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Rudy. Before we get into the meeting officially, I would like first to welcome all the newest members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We are excited that you're here and look forward to your participation and helping to guide the city in from the standpoint of planning and development. I also want to take a moment just to recognize and thank any of our veterans. Since we are at that time, I think we owe an enormous debt of gratitude to our veterans. And I believe I stand with all of our commissioners to say you have our eternal gratitude for the sacrifices you made to keep this country free and that we can enjoy the freedoms that we currently enjoy. So thank you. That being said, first order of business is we will consider approval of the agenda and of the regular meeting minutes of October 27th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Heck?
Yes, Commissioner McGraw.
Commissioner Heck? Who are the new members? Could we have an introduction?
Oh, certainly. I guess I will go to my left. You're right out there. Darrell Cross. Immediately to my right is Jesse Gage. And then Dirk Bergerman at the very end. They're our newest members. So again, welcome.
Thank you.
So that being said, again, do I have a motion on the agenda and the minutes?
Commissioner Heck?
Yes.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approval of minutes from the October 27th, 2020 regular meeting.
Very good. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Begman.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Right, the next order of business is the election of the chair and the vice chair. So we will proceed with first the motion for the election of the chair position. So at this time, I will call for a motion to open the nominations for the chair position. Do I have a motion or a nomination? I mean,
Chair.
Yes.
I nominate Commissioner Heck for chair.
Actually, I had to interrupt. You're going to do a motion to open nomination.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's my fault.
No,
Sorry.
that's all right.
Yeah. So we have to open the nomination. So, I guess, do I have a motion to open the nominations?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we open the nominations for chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Very good. Roll call, Rudy.
Chairman Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Begman.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. At this time, then, I will call for nominations for the chairperson position. So, open it up.
Commissioner Heck?
Yes.
I nominate Commissioner Heck for chair.
Okay. Very good. I have one nomination. Do I have another nomination?
Commissioner
Do
Heck.
I'm sorry.
I nominate Commissioner Heck.
Okay. Very good. Okay, thank you. Do I have another nomination? Again, this is not a motions for, it's just if we have other candidates. Are there any other nominations?
Commissioner Heck, I nominate Michael McGraw.
Okay. Nomination, McGraw. Okay, and one more. Do I hear any nominations for chair? Okay, now I will ask for a motion to close the nominations, not vote, but to close the nominations. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner,
Yes,
I move that the nominations for chairperson be closed.
very good. Thank you. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Darrell, second. Very good. Okay, roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begman.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Okay, at this time, then, I will call for a motion to approve the first person nominated for the chair. That would be Peter Heck. And do I have a motion to approve that person for the chair position?
Commissioner,
Yes.
I move that Peter Heck be approved for chairperson.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And a roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Begman,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Peter Heck is the chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time then, we are going to select a vice chair. At this time, I will ask for a motion to open the nominations for the vice chair person. Do I have a nomination? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we open nominations for the vice chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Jesse. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. I'm sorry, roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begman,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. At this time then, now with the motions open, I will call for nominations. So do I have nominations for the vice chair position?
Chair, I'd like to nominate Michael McGraw for the vice chairperson.
Very good, okay. Do I have another nomination? Do I have another nomination?
Yeah. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Hanchey.
Okay. Okay, then one more. Do I have another nomination for the vice chair position? Okay. All right, this time then I will make a motion to close the nominations. Do I have a motion?
Chairman Heck, I move that the nomination for vice chair be closed.
Very good. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Very good, thank you. Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begman,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. All right, so then now at this time, I will make a motion to nominate the first, a motion to approve the first person nominated for the vice chair position, which was Michael McGraw. Do I have a motion to approve Michael McGraw?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to approve Michael McGraw as vice chair.
Very good, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, Rudy, roll call?
Commissioner Cross,
No.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begman,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
No.
Chairman Heck.
No?
So it's a tie vote, so we move on to the next.
The next person that was nominated.
Okay, so the next person would be
Would be Dave Hanchey.
Dave Hanchey.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the second person nominated, Dave Hanchey. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve Dave Hanchey for vice chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Okay, roll call. Rudy?
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
No.
Commissioner McGraw,
No.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 against. Dave Hanchey is the vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry, yes.
the next item is mine. However, I'd suggest, because I think that's going to take about 3 hours. So I think the public hearing should go first, and then put me after that, or after old business, or whatever.
Okay. Do I need to hear a motion to change that, or can I just?
You don't need a motion.
Okay. All right, so, all right, that being said, then, we will shift to the public hearing, which is, public hearing number 20-606, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of case PZ-7-19, a city-initiated rezoning of 978 East Roosevelt Street from RSGR, General Rural Low Density Single Family Detached Residential, to RS-20, Medium Density Single Family Detached Residential, for the purpose of developing the property and splitting the parcel into 3 lots. This property is located between Royal Palm Road and Cactus Road.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to introduce Kendra Elner. She's a planning intern for the city and goes to the graduate school at Arizona State University. And Kendra's going to make the presentation and then followed by public hearing. I'm going to pull that presentation up to this one, I believe.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kendra Elner. I am a planning intern here at the City of Apache Junction. And tonight, I'm going to present to you case PZ 719, a city-initiated rezoning from RSGR to RS20 PD, 978 East Roosevelt Street. So some background on the property. This is an approximately 2.37 acre parcel that has been abandoned and that was abandoned and occupied by trespassers for several years, and while the owners lived in Germany. There was constant complaints and compliance issues that motivated the city to clean up the property and remove trespassers with owner cooperation. Following these events, the owners no longer wanted to deal with the parcel and donated it to the city. And since then, the property lay vacant. On July 23, 2019, the city received direction to staff to proceed with all necessary actions on the pending action for approval of the rezoning of this property from RSGR to the now proposed RS20 PD. So the zoning map illustrates the surrounding neighborhood zoning designations, and directly to the east, the properties are zoned RM2, which is multifamily residential, and to the north, south, and west is predominantly RSGR, which is low-density residential. And the aerial map depicts the current view of the parcel that is zoned RSGR, or General Rural Low-Density Single-Family Detached Residential, and the planning staff is proposing to rezone it to become RS20 PD, or medium density, single family detached residential by planned development. So our proposal is, the city was initially requesting to rezone the vacant property from RSGR to RS20, but recent topographical information encouraged further recommendation for proposing it to RS20 by planned development to help mitigate the topographical constraints with the reduced setbacks and an allowance of 2 horses per lot, which will be cohesive with the character of the neighborhood. The staff analysis and recommendation notes that the proposal may conflict with the city's general plan because of the future land use and designation for the low-density residential. But the proximity to downtown and the variety of land uses in the area invites for higher density. This is considered a minor general plan amendment, and while the parcel is currently zoned for low density, it is proposed to be split into 3 medium-density parcels with a planned development overlay to be cohesive with the variety of zoning in the neighborhood and adhere to the topographical constraints. There are currently discussions of the conceptual buildable area, and when the properties are to be sold and developed, the new owners will have to coordinate with the utility companies for new services. So this is the future land use exhibit that shows the variety of land uses in the area proposed in the 2020 general plan. As you can see, the parcel in question is projected to be low density and with a similar designation directly to the north, south, and west, but with high density to the east, and the proximity to downtown encourages the higher density designation. And this is the city's conceptual land split map of the proposed 3-lot land split, creating lots of approximately 329.6 feet by 104.6 feet each. And this is the conceptual net area diagram, which supports the staff's recommendations for rezoning the parcel to RS20 PD, showing possible buildable area with setbacks in the front and rear of 20 feet, with allowing 2 horses per lot with the PD overlay. So this is the topography map exhibit that further visualizes the constraints of the buildable area and further supporting the staff's recommendation for the parcel to be rezoned to RS20 by planned development. The Planning and Zoning staff recommend to the Apache Junction Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council the approval of the rezoning case PZ 719 to rezone the approximately 2.37 acre property located between Royal Palm Road and Cactus Road on the north side of East Roosevelt Street from RSGR to RS20 PD for the purpose of creating an opportunity to process a 3-parcel land split under 5 conditions. So the 5 conditions are as follows. First, following the effective rezoning approval, city staff shall take all necessary steps to split the property as conceptually approved. 2, the staff shall coordinate with the city engineer on any additional right-of-way or utility easements needed. 3, the city shall disclose to prospective buyers that additional property improvements may be needed and extensions of services may be necessary upon purchase. And 4, all applicable permits and development fees will be due at the time of development. And 5, the RS20 PD shall allow setbacks of 20 feet front and rear and 10-foot side yards with 2 horses allowed per lot. Any questions and discussion?
Any questions?
Yeah, on the one slide, this one,
Yeah.
what are the purple lines? Is that the edges of the wash?
Yes.
Those are, you can see the one that's labeled 1755.
Yeah.
So essentially what we did is we highlighted what the center of the wash, it's kind of different. I mean, there's high spots, there's low spots, but we took the 755 and agreed that generally, so up here you'll see like 7 a higher elevation down to lower. So that is generally what we think to be where the water flows. There, in this area, it kind of fans out a little more, and you can see this little finger that comes out here.
Right.
So the wash is more defined up this way, northeast, and then gets kind of broader as you go down. The green lines, or the hatched area, would be an area where perhaps it's kind of slightly referenced there, but this could be graded. There would be a 20-foot setback from the wash, but this could be graded, and then some excavation on this side to compensate, roughly the same area for the same area. This gray area here is the buildable area. This would give them a little bit of a yard, so it could be graded, but could not be developed. And so the conventional setbacks, this is set for 25 feet if whatever ends up happening, but instead of a 25-foot setback, you could pick up 5 more feet. This would end up being 61 feet this way. All the lots would end up being 20 feet front setback instead of 25.
Okay. Then my other question would be then, how are you getting this house? Because this would be, this wash.
That was just a typical house.
Right,
That was before we put on the topo information.
right,
So that was without the topo information. We were just looking at a typical house. If you had a ranch might be 30 or 40 feet deep by 60, 70 feet long. So this was for illustrative purposes. And then we more confined it to this. This is the buildable area. It doesn't necessarily mean the house is that big. It's just, this is the footprint where a house could go.
right.
So it did shrink. It could end up being 5 feet more if the front setbacks are relaxed to 20 feet instead of. But this little finger, you can see the topo maps, they point uphill, so to speak. So there's a little bit of a dip here. There's another one here. The site, there's really 2 buildable sites really on this lot. This finger comes all the way up in here, so to speak. This one could meet the setbacks where the an old manufactured home was. So this site has a lot of flexibility as to where someone could build per se, but some grading would have to be done to make either of these 2 areas more buildable. And the city crews actually could do the grading. I mean, if the city in there, when they're not fighting monsoon, because we don't have monsoons anymore, so they could be out there doing some grading. You'd still have to do compaction tests for foundations, et cetera. So that's just how that would work. In terms of, I don't know if the other photo or the other showed, this would include a dedication for right-of-way, 25 feet of right-of-way along here too.
Right.
So the total area shrinks by the dedication of that. You can see this area here where kind of the chip seal or road kind of ends. We did talk with Public Works about, improving this so this person could have a driveway and maybe a cul-de-sac type feature here so you could turn around with a fire truck, et cetera. So there would be some road improvements that are really required for someone to be desirable to buy a lot. We also looked at bringing in water. You have to bring it in from Royal Palm from the west. So we're looking at the city, or the Apache Junction Water District gave 2 estimates. One if Arizona Water put it in, one if they put it in. It was about a third of the price if the Apache Junction Water Community Facilities District did it with their own staff. But then we have to
Welcome to the conferencing service. Please enter your access code followed by the pound. This menu will repeat. Please enter your access code followed. Incorrect access code. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound. Access code accepted. There are 2 participants in this conference. Please announce yourself.
Those are really the limitations. There's water in the neighborhood. neighborhood, but there's not water to the site, so that we would lose. Mike, are you there? We did. We did not hang up on you.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. So the limitations on the site really are, a lot of sites out here have to put in septic. Water, it costs a lot of money to drill, 3 wells. The city is hoping, again, it's up to the council, but the proceeds of the sale of the lot have to recover our cost. And the cost we have so far in this is about $30,000 for the cleanup. And then water would be another $33,000 roughly. I did want to go to Google Earth to show, this doesn't even show the half of what was there. There were, I think, at least 4 or 5 RVs, boats, a lot of nefarious activity going on, and we had to dispose of this manufactured home. There were several RVs, there's garbage pits that were dug here. This was a code case for 7 years. So we had 2 different owners. One German family or owner owned the unit, and the other German family owned the 2.37 acres. So thanks to Joel and others and translating into German the acquisition of this and transferring the property, but roughly we brought out 7 dumpsters full of stuff. I think 4 or 5 of garbage, 2 of metal for recycling, and 1 of plastic recycling. So what we're trying to do as the city is to zone it, appropriately to what fits the neighborhood, of course, and then try to recoup at least that roughly $63,000 if we decide to put in water, and then the city labor force would do the road improvement and that. So that's a little bit more of the background of the property.
Now, it also, by putting the water in across there, we'd go all the way to the 3rd lot if we came, you said from the
West.
so we'd go to the 3rd lot, correct?
Correct.
And that would also provide water service for some of the other residents in this area?
Some of the other residents have water. What's not showing here, maybe because I can't pull up the other city map, but if I zoom out, this roadway here is actually a federal patented easement. So this lot has 25 feet of right-of-way in front of this lot. We're proposing 25 feet here.
Right.
But the easement, the FPE, I think is only 25 feet maybe it's 33. But we'd have to put the water line along the FPE because we can't put it on, there is no FPE on the north side of the road. That's why we're doing the dedication. So we would bring the water in from the FPE. At this point, we're really not talking about, punching the road through, so to speak. I think people do like the desirability of, city could always in the future, but having, traffic not cut through here, I think is probably what people will want. So the water would come in along FPE, and we would have to bring water to make sure all 3 lots had water.
Right. My question is, would it benefit any of the other residents in this area with that?
Not really. And again, I don't have it's a private water company, so we don't have records as to who has water. Some of these may have water in here already, or this is also, I think, Rudy, is this Tamarisk, I think, this alignment? They may have water along here, I don't know. But what we do know is to get these 3 water, Arizona Water, that's the problem. You build the facility and then you give it to them, and then they kind of recoup. You may get, I think it's 10% of their gross receipts on future water, so it's really hardly a payback for, that's why nobody puts in water on their own, because it doesn't benefit you. Yes, you need water, but then anybody else can hook up to it after you've paid for the cost.
Right. Well, no, I'm just looking at it from the aspect, at least some of our residents, especially since they had to put up with this eyesore for so many years in that area, at least they would get a benefit back in that area at least.
They may, but that's not. Prime motivator is really selling these lots. I think it's going to be easier to sell them if they have water rather than 3 homeowners each drilling a well.
And I agree with that point as well.
Absolutely.
And we've done a little bit of real estate, looking at values. There are different ways to do this. You could create 1 1/4 acre lot. and we wouldn't even have to rezone it. And then the other lot would be 1.13, but that's too small for horse privileges. But a acre and a quarter lot vacant, with water, sounds like it's roughly going between $110,000 and $130,000. So ballparking it, if we did 2 lots, we might make net revenue after water and demolition, maybe $160,000 one way, $150,000 the other way. So again, we're showing this as an option, thinking that a home builder there's some economy if there's one bidder and they built 3 homes. So it might be easier to sell the 3 lots to someone who would build 3 homes. There are a few other horse properties in the neighborhood, but again, the zoning to the east is multifamily. There is a 7-unit type project further to the east. To the northeast this is an area where you have RSGR that butts up against pretty high density zoning on the map here. So,
But we are including the horse rights into these 3 lots regardless.
the recommendation, just because of the character of the area, other than the mobile home park and the Skies, the restaurant, again, multifamily, potential multifamily, potential multifamily, potential multifamily. So this is all RM2 as well. So it's fairly high density zoning.
So,
We're trying to find something that kind of fits, that's not totally out of character with the neighborhood.
Chairman Heck, I have a question.
go ahead, Mac.
This is originally 2.37 acres, Larry,
Correct.
and your lots will be how big?
The lots are essentially 34,000 square feet each. I think is that with the right-of-way, Rudy, dedicated, do you remember? Or is that net?
This was not with the right-of-ways.
So without the right-of-way, they're less than 34,000. So it's about 30,000 roughly. Well, 25 feet by,
Equals,
yeah.
how many acres would that convert into, sir?
Well, 34,000 square feet is about 3/4 of an acre, roughly. An acre's
So
43.
we're gonna,
Go ahead.
we have a general plan that asks for 1.25 acres for horses, and we're gonna change that to 0.75 now?
That's what the proposal would be, yes. So it's considered a minor general plan amendment because it's under 10 acres.
And we do have current exceptions for certain lots already.
Yeah, again, there's really 2 ways to do this, I think. I guess is one would be to create an acre and a quarter lot that would be, and the other one would be 1.13, I think. So one would have horse privileges and one wouldn't. You could do the PD overlay to allow the second lot to have horse privileges, or you could do this. Either way, I hate to say this, a horse apiece, of whether as far as the return to the city when we sell the lots. So now you're taking water, though. It's cost you $33,000 to put in water. You got to divide that by 2 instead of 3. So it's about the same net, I think, because now you're going to divide that 33,000 by 2 instead of 3.
So Larry, question, is there any concern that parcel A is really a pretty unfavorable lot because of the wash? I mean, really, a vast majority of that parcel is not developable, so.
Yeah, I think you would have to discount that. We kind of looked at real estate values or sales of lots that were vacant, acre and a quarter lots. But we were going to discount it because you had to do grading. Well, if the city does the grading, then you don't discount for the grading. If it has water, there's no discount. But the buildable site, the usable area, I think you would have to discount this lot compared to Lot B.
Right.
What that is, we haven't done an appraisal yet, but this is all set up for RS20, so it's conventional site-built homes, not manufactured homes.
That's right, yeah.
So this would be similar to, Rudy, what was the old district that was the RS 140?
The old RS, I'm sorry, the old R143 zone, under our previous zoning ordinance had language in there about this thing called a commercial lot, which was basically defined, I think, as a 33,000 square foot lot. And similar to the county's CR1A zone, the commercial acre in an R143 allowed 2 horses.
So the only, I guess the other aspect of that is if you leave it, if you had one lot zoned RSGR, there's no limit on the number of horses. You could have 30 horses over there. You could have 20 horses. You could have 10 horses. So you could have one lot with no horse privileges on a straight RSGR 1.13 acres. The one next to it would be 1.25 gross that would have no limit on horses. So the proposal here was to allow horses because of the character of the area, but limit it to 2 based on the lot size.
Or we could make it into,
Or you could have RS20 with no horses, you know.
or we could allow them a 2-horse limit, because it'd be still over an acre. It'd be almost an acre and a quarter.
Yeah, if you did a rezoning to RSGRPD,
Yeah,
then you could, either case you could limit the number of horses.
right.
And you could also recommending having less of a setback at 20 rather
Right.
than 25, at least for that one lot.
Right. I think that would be.
So that's a lot of stuff to think. We do have, if any other questions, we are set up for a public hearing, so we do want to hear from the
Right,
public.
right, okay. All right, yeah, so this is a public hearing, so.
Commissioner,
Yes.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On Lot B, how much are you going to allow that to be graded?
Well, we would look at this area here I'm looking at, and in this area. It depends on where the house site is. So this wouldn't need to be graded. None of this would need to be graded. We're really looking at the front. None of this would really need to be graded. It's really this area and this area. And these are fairly, not much grading needed, but those are the 2 areas of grading.
Well, my question is, those all indicate drainages into the main wash. And you start removing those drainages, that's gonna flow into somebody else's property.
Well, you would grade the lots so that it would flow back to this area. So this lot would drain, you'd grade it such that it would drain to this part of the wash rather than draining through. This one I suppose you could leave alone because it's right, it would drain right into here. This one kind of drains right into what might be a yard, so maybe you grade this such it drains over here and then just have it keep going that way.
I have a couple questions. On the Lot A, to the north end, looks like a lot of little tributaries coming in. Is that,
In here, you mean?
yes.
Okay.
So is that area capable of putting up like horse pens, or is it gonna get flooded?
Well, I guess we'd try to go back to the Google Earth. That lot, I'm sure this is the main wash that comes through here.
Yeah.
And there's like a little bit of a wash that's kind of starts, I don't know if this thing, the runoff from here kind of comes this way. It probably does, but I don't know for sure. So, they could do some grading in this area to make a pen area.
And are any of the other smaller lots that are to the northeast, right off the northeast corner of this parcel, so those 2, 3 right here, are any of those allowed to have horses? They appear to be the same size lots that you're proposing.
So they're zoned RM2, but if they're over an acre and a quarter, they can, is that right, Rudy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're zoned multifamily, but if they're an acre and a quarter each, which I believe they are, they can.
No, they're smaller.
Are they smaller, those lots? Let me. So if they're not an acre and a quarter, they can't. I guess that's the answer.
Yeah, I was wondering if
I don't
they
know-
had
I don't
been
know.
given special privilege, like we're proposing.
Pardon me?
I was just wondering if they had been given special privilege like we're proposing.
Not at this time, no. They'd have to come in and apply for it.
But Larry, we have a number of properties throughout Apache Junction that have kind of been grandfathered in with horse privileges, right, that they don't necessarily meet the dimension requirements.
Yeah, old historical properties, yes, they could be half acre, 3/4 of an acre, but if they had horses, they get to keep them. If they remove the horses for over 12 months, then they cannot have them.
Right.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Any other questions from the commission?
All right.
Mike, did they have any other questions, Mike?
No, you answered my, the way you're splitting this up and what is acceptable and what isn't. So, no, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, this is
I've got one.
I'm sorry.
I guess the other option you didn't really mention is just leaving it the 2.37 and selling it that way. I'm kind of assuming your proposed option generates the most revenue for the city.
Yeah, that did come up at the Plan Commission back in 2019 of just leaving it, and our presumption was any astute person would just come in and do what we're doing, and they would get the benefit. They would reap the benefits of doing the lot split and the rezoning.
Okay.
So,
And then the water line, is the city going to pay to put the water line in? Is that kind of the proposed?
it's really up to the council at this point. We're looking at what the land use would be. To me, the other step for the council is what happens with the proceeds when we sell the land. So one approach would be to put it in the general fund and use those funds as the city does in the general fund, minus, the money's already been spent, but the concept is to at least recoup our $30,000, which the city coffers spent doing that. So the other idea that has been put out is the city has a community development corporation. So the Apache Junction Community Development Corporation, if the council so wishes or agrees to, is the net proceeds would go to the Corporation Commission for neighborhood revitalization. So they could go into a different area of the city, perhaps find something that, could be bulldozed, and try to parlay these funds into redeveloping another part of the city. So that's been the concept. The council hasn't really weighed in on that yet, but that would be the idea. But we would have to do sealed bids and, get the highest and best bid for the property to make sure it's open and fair, and then the proceeds. The only out-of-pocket cost we would have would be for water, because we already have the sunk cost, so to speak, of the cleaning up the property.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. Do I have anyone that wishes to speak? Yes, sir. If you would come up, please state your name, your address. We'll have 5 minutes to speak. You may not direct questions to the commission. If there are issues, we can refer them to staff. Your name, please, sir.
My name is James Borichter. I live at 1054 East Roosevelt, right next door to this. I am here not only for myself, I'm here for several other neighbors that cannot be here. Some of my neighbors live in Canada. I lived next to this mess for 7 years. I did everything I could to get you guys to do, or the city to do something. They finally did. Now you want to put horses next to me? Are you kidding? On that little bit of acreage? First of all, it's not suited for that. The only horses in the area are further away. The ones are right across the street from you, but that's like 1.5 acres or damn near 2 acres. 2 horses on that little bit of property is a lot of horses. You're going to develop this and not make the road paved? That's dust control. That's dust. That's EPA's going to be all over you, because I'm going to call them. Sorry. I fought to get this place cleaned up. I fought to make it a better neighborhood. This is not making it that much better. I don't mind the lots being 3 lots. The 2 horses I don't like at all. And I'm sure a lot of my friends and neighbors aren't going to like it neither as soon as I get back to them. I don't know what else to say to you. I mean, you're going to make rules. I know you're the city and you can do whatever you want. And I would just like to see the road pushed through all the way through, because any houses that you build, that's 3 cars per household coming down my road, making dust. I've got enough dust already. You know, I'm zoned multifamily. I guess if I wanted to be rezoned, I could come here and get mine all split up like this too. I could make a lot of money that way. I don't know. I'm at a loss. They threw some stuff at me tonight that I wasn't ready for. The two horses per lot, that's not good. I mean, you guys, any of y'all want to come and look at it? I think you ought to come out and look at it first before you make up any decisions. I'll be glad to show you around. I can tell you more about that property than probably anybody. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this case? No, if not, I will close the public hearing. Okay, at which time now I will seek any comments, any opinions from the commission?
Chair.
Chairman Heck?
Yeah, yes, go ahead, Chairman McGraw, or Commissioner McGraw.
The guy makes a point about those 3 lots and then creating a whole bunch of extra traffic that he wasn't really looking forward to. The city, I can see wanting to make as much profit as possible on this by splitting it up. I get that. However, we do have policies in place that tell us what we can and can't do, or what we should and shouldn't do. So I'm of the mind that I would probably recommend something in the motion that I would like to see that property split too, but only 2 ways, not 3. And then they can do their horses on there, or cows, or chickens, or whatever it is they want. But I think we should stick with our original general plan when it comes to rezoning these properties. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman?
Any other, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Commissioner McGraw. I think we should split this into 2 larger lots. That way they're both at least over an acre, acre and a quarter, and then whatever the change may be. I think they would be, if they're going to have horses, it's more susceptible to, or more, the word eludes me right now, but I think it would be better, especially with the wash that runs through there for the home sites. It would be better. It fits with the plan better, the general city plan. It would cut down some traffic coming through there, because thus it'd only be 2 families versus 3. I still think the profit potential is there for the city to make a good profit. So I think the city still benefits good that way, because an acre and a quarter lot and almost an acre and a quarter lot, I still think brings in good revenue for the city. So I think both is benefiting there. And I think we need to design it in such a way that it increases that site to where they don't have to cram a house right up on that wash and everything. So, not necessarily 3 rectangles coming down, but maybe we get a little creative and move this over a little. That's what I would personally like to see here. I know we want to try and keep lots more symmetric and everything, and that's our main goal, but I think this is a special circumstance. I mean, it was given to the city, it was donated. I think what we have now and going forward, it's a lot better than what we had 7 years ago. And again, it's a special case, so let's do it right.
Any other?
I tend to agree. I think making these lots 3 is too much. We break it into 2. For one thing, you've got a drainage. Anytime you're building on it, you're gonna alter how that land flows. Whether you grade it to the back or not, you're gonna have people getting into it. If you wanna put horses on it, you're gonna have horse waste being flowed down when it's raining significantly like it did a year ago. And I mean, I know horse people and I know they're meticulous about cleaning up, but there are options or optimum times where they can't do it. You're gonna have that waste flowing downstream to people's other yards, which is indicated on the map that there's people living just down the stream. I think if we cut this down to 2, it'd be plenty sufficient. Besides, I think real estate will tell you that 1.25 acres is a whole lot more expensive than 3/4 of an acre.
Darrell or Jesse, either have any thoughts?
Yeah, Dirk's right when it comes to horse waste and flowing downstream. It happens, sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose. People don't want to shovel it, and so they put it on the edge of the wash and let Mother Nature take its course. And it does happen. Based on those lot sizes, we can't get 2 1.25 acre properties. You can only get 1 1.25 acre and then a smaller. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's correct.
And would you choose to make the smaller one a 2-horse limit?
Well, again, that's up to the Plan Commission, how they want to do that. You'd have to, again, I think you could make it still RS20 PD, you could make it RSGR PD. And again, maybe with the neighbor being to the east, maybe you want to have the smaller lot on the east to limit it to 2 horses. If you're going to do that, then the western lot is the 1.25 acre that you could also limit it to 2 horses or whatever you wanted to do. But at least in consideration of the neighbor, if you're going to make 2 roughly acre plus lots, maybe the one on the right, on the east has the limitation on horses.
Mm-hmm.
Then it'd butt up against RSGR, which has the horse privileges anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be preferring to do the western half, the 1.25 acre, and the eastern split to be limited.
It's 1.13 roughly, something like that. But.
Larry, I have
Be in
a
favor of
question.
something like that.
Have there been site drawings done of the 2 parcels?
No,
guess
but
my problem
it's pretty simple, I
You know,
think.
my concern is, as Commissioner Hanchey indicated, that there may be, I don't know that you necessarily can make them just identical rectangles, just one a little larger. Is there
What would it look like?
anything that would?
Well, we're trying, and we could go back, I don't have the parcel map, but we had a discussion at the council a couple weeks ago about these sawtooth lots that are goofy and crazy and create consternation with neighbors and, where's my property, your property? So our goal would be to have as straight a lines as possible through them instead of trying to create, again, recognizing topography in some cases, but in this case, I think it's the north kind of west part of the property that has limited uses. So even if you divide this where the eastern lot's 1.25 acres and the western one is on 1.13 or whatever, it still is going to have a little bit of limitations because it's going to have less usable area, the western lot, no matter what you do. But yeah, rather than, this, I think it's just, our preference would be to have straight lines.
Okay, all right.
And again, if you look at here, you just figure out where the 1.25 acre line is, you create that one. And again, I think these end up being net anyway, Rudy, because of the dedication.
Right.
So we would say 1.25 acre gross, knowing that we have to donate the first 25
25
feet.
feet,
So we would have,
Right.
yeah. So both lots are gonna, even the acre and a quarter lot is not gonna net out at an acre and a quarter
Correct.
because of the dedication, right?
Plus, the other positive of doing that, the acre and a quarter, even though it has the wash and everything on it, being an acre and a quarter, full horse privileges, it'll help offset some of the negatives with the value and everything. And then that not being a full acre and a quarter would drive up the value, because there's a lot of people that I don't necessarily want to have a horse, and I can still have a nice lot, and it's a large lot, it's over an acre, and I can do my thing. So I still think the city would maximize its value out of it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and I'm not trying to cut anybody off, I just want to say, I get a sense this is a complicated case for all of you. And some of you are new, and there's no rush. You can continue this if you like.
Where I was going with this was to continue it because I feel like we're still juggling this thing a little bit, so.
I just wanted to point out, if you didn't know, but you can continue this
Right.
since there's 4 new members.
That's why I was asking about whether or not there were actually design drawings or
bring it
partial
back.
drawings of that, so, okay. So I guess if I realize this is for the first time for you guys, but if you're, if in
Commissioner
fact we feel like we don't have a real good sense of this, then we would continue that, and we'll have to continue it to a specific,
I'd like to make a motion.
okay, no, we have to have a specific date for the next,
Date certain, so you don't have to republish it, correct?
right? So it would have to be, if we want to say, a month, then
Well, we should have a date certain, so Rudy, when, the next date?
two planning and zoning meetings from now? Or do we want to do
So
the
the
next one?
next P and Z meeting would be on December 22nd.
Which we probably won't.
No, before that, December.
Then there's
December,
there's the first one in
December 10th or 11th or somewhere in there.
December 8th is a Tuesday
Well,
night.
right now, it's scheduled for city council on December 1st, so we'd have to get a continuance at council too.
Yeah,
So the next P and Z meeting would be the 8th?
the 8th. Yeah,
So it's either the 8th or the 22nd.
yeah.
Is everybody going to be here Christmas week?
Well, I certainly would not recommend the 22nd.
Right.
I think probably the 8th would be,
Would they be able to have everything?
What do you want us to come back with? A 2-lot diagram, the 3-lot diagram?
two-lot diagram.
2-lot diagram.
Yeah, with the
White.
acre and a quarter on the west
Do we-
side.
Do we need to put this in the continuance, exactly what we're looking for?
I would suggest you do,
Well, hold on, Chairman Heck,
Yes, sir.
I'm not so sure that 1.25 on one side and whatever on the other side. I kind of tend to agree with Rudy and Larry. Let's draw it right down the middle. We'll make some allowances for what would it be, about 9/10 of an acre, and treat them as a quarter of an acre, so that we're not, like you said, like Larry was saying, it looks like a sawtooth. Let's go ahead and just split that thing down the middle. Somebody wants to put horses on a property that doesn't look like it's as well suited as the other property, that's their choice. But I think if we just split it, and I think it comes out to about 1.18 or something along those lines,
1.1.
and have a drawing made to that, and we'll treat it as a 1.25. What do you guys think?
So essentially what he's saying is each lot's going to be less than an acre and a quarter. You just simply take lot B and draw a line down through the middle of it and you're done.
Right,
There's really not need for a whole new drawing.
that would be my idea.
So each lot, there is no acre and a quarter lot. Each lot ends up being,
Each lot.
whatever, 2.37 divided by 2. Do we have an engineer in the room or anybody can do math?
Not that much.
And
So-
allow horses, not
Yeah.
allow horses, make it 2 horses.
so Madam, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I suggest you do a motion to continue for a date certain for December 8th, and then list the conditions that you want to bring back for staff to prepare some new conditions. That's what I suggest you do,
Okay.
if you want to continue it.
So I guess I need a motion then for continuance to, if we decide December 8th, and then the conditions, one of which would be if we want to do that, just divide it right down the middle, or do we want to, maybe we request two designs, one of a 1 1/4 and the other, so we can have, we have a
We have
chance
to
to
put
look at
specifics, or
those.
can we just say staff to present multiple
So we've got the concept for 3, we can do 1 1/4 acre, 1.12,
Equals.
whatever, we can do 2 equals. That's the
Because
other-
I think the city should kind of take a look at what would be the best values too.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd move that we continue this case to December 8th, and that staff come back to us with 2 options. One with this lot split in half, and the second with one parcel, a minimum of 1.25 acres.
Okay, and you said December 8th? is that-
December 8th. to come
Okay, all right, I have a
Second.
motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all right, I have a second. Roll call, Rudy?
Vice Chair Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes,
Commissioner McGraw.
Yep.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. We will come back on December 8th with 2 or 3, or at least 3 options for you to look at.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, that was a lot of goings on there.
Tail lot.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will return back to part of the new business, the presentation and discussion on conflict of interest, open meeting law, public record law, parliamentary procedures, and code of conduct by city attorney.
Welcome, board. Welcome to the new appointees. Congratulations. Well, I thought that was going to be quicker than mine, but I guess I was wrong about that, so. Okay, we can go through this fairly quickly. And so I'll start with conflicts of interest. So, as a board member, or commissioner, you got to watch out for things, situations where you're voting on something that you might have a proprietary or pecuniary right. So that's money or property. And not just you, your relatives also. So what's a relative? You go back to page 6 on number 11. And I'm going to read this one because this is kind of important. What's the relative? Any individual within 2 degrees of kinship, including spouse, child, child's child, parent, grandparent, brother or sister of whole or half blood, and their spouses, and the parent, brother, sister, or child of a spouse. So that's a lot of people you have to think about. And hopefully you know when you're voting up here who owns this property, and you know it's hopefully not you and it's not a relative, because that's a direct conflict of interest. That's the most obvious. And that's what a substantial interest is, a pecuniary or proprietary interest. Moving on, why should you care? There's criminal penalties that could happen if you violate it. There's also forfeiture of public office, private lawsuits, and also a Class 5 felony. And the fine on a Class 5 felony is $150,000. So you don't want to play around with this stuff. Now, there are exceptions. The exceptions are called remote interest, and there's a whole bunch of them. The most common one that I've seen with the city council in the last 23 years is when it's a class, and that's under letter J, a class interest. So if a member of trade, business, professional, or other class of persons consisting of at least 10 or more members, with which no greater interest than that of the other class members. So, what does that mean? Example, I always use this example because it's perfect. Back in 2000, a church came to the city, said, we want to put up a steeple that's going to be, I think it was 64 feet tall. And our zoning code allowed 25 feet. So at the time, we had a mayor who happened to be a member of that church. And could the mayor vote on that? How many think that he could? Anybody?
Because of that, I mean, I think because he didn't have any more interest in it than the other members of the
He was
congregation.
correct, he was part of a class of 10 or more, and so he could vote on it. However,
Joel, what if that person was a church elder or on the church council?
then it depends if they have a salary or they're getting some proprietary interest of any kind, then I'd say no. But there's another way to look at it too. The law is always debatable. You know, it's very rare that it's black and white. However, if there's a appearance of impropriety, you got to think about that too. How's that going to look to the public? And so is that a legal conflict? No, but how's it going to look? So you may want to basically not vote on that if you think the appearance of impropriety is just too much. Okay, what do you do if you think you have a conflict or you don't know? Call me. First you call me, you tell me what the facts are. And I'm going to give you what I think the rule is. And then if you think, hey, I want to vote on this thing, is there any way that you can say that there's no conflict? I'm going to say, well, I'll look at the law, and the law will decide based on the facts that you give me. And hopefully you give me all the facts. And when you do, I'll write a memo that will explain the issues and what you're voting on. And I will take that memo and I will file it with the city clerk's office. So now, and it will say either way, but usually it's the ones that you want to say, hey, you don't have a conflict. You can now use that and say, look, I've got this thing from the city attorney under the law, under Title 38. I'm good. I can vote on this. And that is true. So if I'm wrong, you're okay. You are immunized from any kind of liability. The vote itself might not be, but you are personally. And you won't have to pay any fines. You won't be subject to any criminal law. If you have a conflict, how do you get out of it? How do you basically not vote? You address the chairman, say, Chairman, right about the time that they state the title, say, I have a conflict of interest on this item, and I'm recusing myself. And you get up and you leave the room. Do not stay seated. That's my advice. Do you have to leave? No, but you should. Because someone might accuse you of giving signals to others or whispering in their ear, say, hey, you should vote on this way because my relative is going to make some money and I'll give you a kickback. Not that any of you would do that, but people will start alleging that. That's what happens, especially with social media. Yeah. It starts and it's lit on fire and you can't stop it. So you basically get off, go talk to Matt for a while. You can listen to it. You cannot influence the decision, however, in any way.
Can we take our role as a citizen and the public and voice our concerns that way as a citizen?
I would not recommend it because, can you? Yes. But how's that going to look? You get up, now you're here, and you're talking to your fellow board members or commission members. And, if you think that the appearance of impropriety is not that bad, that's up to you. Can you do it legally? Yes. But if you're trying to influence their decision, I mean, you're a commission member. They know that. Someone could argue you're influencing. I'm turning you into the AG's office. You don't want the AG on you. Believe me, I've been on that side. I've always won, but it's an ugly place to be because you're always being threatened, and it's not a nice place to be. You have to turn over documents. You're under the gun, and you feel in a dark world for a long time until you're vindicated, basically. Okay. Let's move on. I think there's a bunch of definitions you could read on your own, but those are the highlights of conflict of interest law. Next is the open meeting law. The public policy that meetings or it is the public policy that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly and that notices and agendas be provided for such meeting, which contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. So what that means is, when you have a meeting, the public is supposed to know from the notice that there's going to be a hearing, number one. And when there's agendas, the agenda has to be specific as to what the public believes or what is described. It can't just be, like tonight, for example. You had an item for a change in zoning on a piece of property. If we had just listed the address, 938 Roosevelt, period, that's not enough. It had to say what was going on, and this is very specific, and it's perfect. Less than that, I'd have some issues with. More than that, it's too much. It's got to be enough that the public knows what's going on that agenda for that item. Why should you care? I always put a why should you care provision in these documents, or most of them. And I'm not going to read all of them, but once again, you have civil and some administrative things that could happen to you if you do not follow the law, and also could affect the city too. Now, it applies when there's a quorum. In this case, a quorum is at least 4 members of the board, of the commission. So what does that mean? That means if you're at a social event, and you're sitting together, and how's that going to look to the public, number one? Or you're here at a council meeting, and you're sitting in the front row all together. It's going to look bad because eventually the public's going to know who you are. And we're on TV, and everybody is seeing this is streamed through different social media outlets. So everybody is going to figure out who you are, and they're going to say, wait, look, they're sitting there, and there's 4 of them. That's a quorum. And we're supposed to post that meeting, even though that's not a meeting, but that's what people can say. And that's what the AG's office will likely say.
And then can they also request that whatever was discussed amongst them be made public then?
They can ask, yes, they can certainly do that. Because what will happen, the AG will investigate it, and the AG is going to interview every one of you.
Yeah.
And there's no way I can keep you from that, especially if you are violating the law. You have to be interviewed. And if you refuse, then the AG is going to probably get a judge to throw you off this board or this commission.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where it's kind of it's not deliberate. It's like you have a tendency sometimes after the meetings, you walk outside and you're just sitting kind of interacting over after it. But particularly now we have to be careful because only 3 people now constitutes a quorum, I believe, correct?
No, it's still 4. It's still 4 because you have the person that's no longer here. Well, she's gone, but there's an empty seat, but it's still 7. It's 7 people, and so it's still a quorum. Just like on the votes tonight for the vice chair, you had to have 4 to pass. 3-3 doesn't pass when there's only 6 here.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Well, I want to point out, when I first started this job 23 years ago, Village Inn was a wonderful place because that's where everybody went after council meetings. Rudy can attest to this. And P&Z meetings, more so with P&Z. So I went there a few times because I was hungry after the meeting. And I'm thinking, whoa, this meeting is reconvening here at Village Inn. Oh, and they're talking about the items again because that was going on. So now Village Inn, unfortunately, is gone, but it could happen in different restaurants. Okay, so there has to be a notice of the meeting. We do that. And I've already kind of discussed that. It has the time and the dates and the item that's being presented or what is being presented. You could have emergency meetings. That doesn't happen too much at planning and zoning. It does with some city council meetings, but it's very, very rare. The agendas have to be specific. We've talked about that already. Call to the public. That's an item on the agenda, on the council agenda. We don't have to have it Actually, we don't have to have it at all. It's something that's permissible under state law. So there's no reason to really have it at the Planning and Zoning Commission because you are a recommending body. So it's what the council basically put you in to recommend to them. And then people could come to the council to discuss at the call to the public. Call to the public used to be at the beginning of the meeting. So you'd have the pledge, you'd have a council meeting, and you'd have the prayer, and then it'd be called to the public. It got abused by certain individuals where they used it for political reasons. And they would put on people who would read the script that they wrote, and it would go on, for hour and 15 minutes. And I won't mention who I'm talking about, but I tell you, that went on for about 9 months. And it crippled every council meeting. So the council did put it at the end. The council could have just eliminated it completely. And I wouldn't recommend that because you do want to hear from the public about items that the city council has jurisdiction over.
Would they still have a 5-minute max on the time?
It was 3-minute max,
Oh, 3
but for
minutes.
public hearings, it's 5.
It's 5, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're on a public hearing item.
But so people just get up one after the other for 3 minutes and just rattle
Yes.
on?
Yes,
Holy crap.
and it was very political, extremely. There were recalls involved. It was a very ugly time. Minutes?
Could you talk a little bit about call to the public when it does come up? And I've been in a couple meetings where there starts to be interaction between commission members and the person in call to the public.
Yes.
And I think we just need a little bit of training on that. That, from my understanding, you listen to what they have to say, and if there's a question, you ask it to staff. You don't interact with the guy at the podium. Is that?
For call to the public. And remember, you don't have a call to the public on your agenda. But for council, yes. What's supposed to happen is, they're not supposed to argue with the individual who's speaking. I haven't seen too much of that recently, but it has happened in the past. And then the council gets at the end, and in fact, on page 4, call to the public, the council can respond to criticism, ask staff to review a matter, ask staff to place the matter on a future agenda. So that's what staff can do after that person takes their 3 minutes. And that's how it's supposed to go.
Okay.
If something happens, and we've had situations where people don't want to leave the podium, and it gets a little dicey, then I'm the sergeant of arms under Robert's Rules, and we'll get to Robert's Rules later. And I was asked probably, that was, I could think of 3 people where I was asked to intervene and say, Mr. Mayor, can we have a brief recess? And then that would happen. Sometimes that didn't happen. I thought, really? We need to do this because people get a little upset when things get a little crazy. And then now a police officer's coming up, putting their hand on the guy's shoulder, and it's like, okay, you got to sit down. That happened back in 1999. I remember that with a police officer. It was not good. Minutes. Minutes are being taken as we speak. These get televised, these sessions. And so the minutes themselves do not have to be taken down like from a stenographer. They don't have to be verbatim, despite what some people have said in the past. Because you are publicizing, the city publicizes these meetings by putting them up on the internet. That is better than any kind of verbatim, to some people. Some people, though, want to be able to see it in writing, and I understand that. And we did have a city clerk and an assistant clerk who used to take just excellent notes, like Rudy takes excellent notes. That's the former deputy clerk took wonderful minutes, and they were very detailed. They didn't have to be. And the city got used to that for, 15, 20 years. And then someone asked me, hey, do we have to do that? I said, no, you don't. You can, but you don't. So because of the staff time that was involved in that, because it was huge, probably, I don't know, she probably spent 10 hours a week on it, wouldn't you say, Rudy? At least? Minutes are very difficult, because you have to listen to the tape and then take it down, and then go back and make sure you got it right. So that practice stopped. So now, and also now everything's televised, so you can go and just look at it. Executive sessions, we have sometimes with this commission. You might see them on conditional use permit applications. And that's where the legal issues have to be discussed. Before conditional use permits, you have to have certain criteria. And it's good to talk about those in executive sessions sometimes. We try not to do executive sessions because the public says, hey, what are you doing back in that room? We don't like that you go and meet. Are you agreeing all to vote on something? I mean, I've been accused of that, and it's not true. That's not why you do executive sessions. It's for legal issues, and the city has a right to keep legal issues confidential, especially when it's going to affect their position on buying a piece of property or 938 Roosevelt. That's a good idea. That's a good one. What if we decide we're going to sell that? And we get into a bargaining situation with a buyer. So everything has to be in public. That's not how private sales are. Not everything's in public, because you get into, well, we're going to offer this much, but we might go higher, and you don't want the other party to know that. It's business. That's what it is. It's not fraud on the public. So some people believe that, but it's not. It's done all the time, every day for private sales. So eventually, the city will probably sell those parcels, but that's up to the city council. Okay. And also, executive sessions are confidential. Anything said in executive session cannot come out of executive session by anybody. So I'll be in there with you, and I'm the attorney. Anything I say is attorney-client privilege. That cannot be put out on social media or in any other manner. It can't be told to somebody, and if it is, that's a violation of the statute. Same with the city council. Okay, there are some exceptions, and I'm not going to go through all those. I'll let you read that on your own. And I think we're ready for the next one. Public records law, excuse me. This stuff is fascinating. Maybe not to some of you, but to me it is. Say you're doing a conditional use permit. You're considering an application. And you're at home, and you're taking notes because we have a complicated item. When you're taking notes, you as a commissioner, you're a public official. Your note is now a public record. And so what's supposed to happen after the item is done, after you vote on it, you're supposed to hand that over to Mr. Eskevius, and he's supposed to keep it for a certain amount of time. It's what the State Archives Department says we have to keep it. I think it's 3 years for development services and planning and zoning. But if you don't do that, then that's a problem, and I'm going to get into that. Public records and other matters in the custody of any public officer shall be open to inspection for any person at all times during business hours. The law serves to open government activity to be public, to public scrutiny. The core purpose is to allow public access to official records and other governmental information so the public may monitor the performance of government officials and their employees. So, what that means is, and our state is incredibly liberal on public records law, even more so than California, which is really hard to believe. Our statute doesn't say, if someone does a request for a public record, it doesn't give the city 10 days. I'll get into this, but it says, you shall, as a city official, give this up promptly. And it defines what promptly is. Why should you care? We get into what happens if the public official or the public entity doesn't give something up. And I'll give you an example of that. In 2000, around that time, 2001, we had a horrible shooting. And we eventually settled out of court. And the city contracts with a company called Southwest Risk Services. That is the city's insurance company or broker. And the city hires an attorney for that. That's been in the contract for 40 years. I mean, I didn't put that in the contract, but that's the arrangement. So they hire an attorney. The attorney on that case settled the case. I'm not going to comment on the settlement, except that I didn't really like it. But anyway, it got settled, and they put it in a settlement agreement. And they said, okay. And it's public now. It was $1.65 million on a shooting where a kid was unfortunately killed by a police officer. So the other side, the press actually wanted to know, they wanted to see that agreement. They wanted to see how much. And the attorney refused to give that agreement or the dollar amount. And I was not even informed about that. And that attorney went to, I think, Europe for vacation. And that by that time, we had a First Amendment law firm saying, hey, where's the document? Give it to us. We're entitled to it. And so it went to court, and that attorney came back from Europe and fought it and said, no, you're not going to get it. And in court, basically the judge said, city, you should be giving that up. That is not a confidential document. Even though it said confidentiality agreement, there's no such thing when it comes to a settlement agreement, not in the public sector. So nothing is confidential when it comes to the actual settlement because it's public funds. Even though the insurance company paid that 1.65, and then our premiums went skyrocketed for many years. It was awful. So anyway, the bottom is the moral of the story there is don't do that because then they can ask for their attorney fees, and they did. And they got, I believe, around $30,000 in attorney fees. And this could have been settled in just 2 or 3 days. Instead, it went on for about a month and a half. And there were attorneys billing $500-600 an hour from a very expensive First Amendment law firm. They were good attorneys, but that's a lot of money. So, going on to promptly. What does promptly mean? Well, under page 2, prompt disclosure means quick to act or do what is required or without delay. So when someone does a request, you have to give that information promptly in any documents. So in your case, if someone does a request for any documents involving 978, any documents you have, what will happen is the city clerk will get it. City clerk will turn it over to a bunch of departments, in this case, Development Services, saying, okay, Rudy, you need to compile all this information. And he's going to come to each one of you saying, hey, do you have any documents on this that you worked on, that you created? Because I need them for this public record request. And that's how it's supposed to happen. You're supposed to give it over to Rudy. I then look at them. And it's not just documents, by the way. It's also emails. You're supposed to keep your emails that you send to Rudy and that you send to each other. So if you're talking to each other, I'm going to go back to open meeting law right now, because if you're talking to each other by email on a case, and now there's 4 of you doing it, that is a violation of the open meeting law because now there's a quorum. Even though there's no meeting, but people will say, well, no, that's a meeting of your minds and you're talking about the item. And especially if you say, well, hey, I'm going to vote this way. And I've got 2 other votes. I need your vote. And we got it. You can't do that. That's completely illegal. So I wanted to explain that because that's very important, especially... and it's not just emails, it's also if you go on social media and you're posting things and you're basically talking to the other members on, say, Facebook, for example. That is going to be problematic because especially when there's 4 of you. Someone's going to notice that at one point and they're going to call the AG's office. And then all the depositions start and all the public record requests, and they can just come in here and look too. Now, how do you keep your documents? That's another question. Do you have it on your private phone, or is it issued by the city for, like, if council members, for example, can get a laptop, or they could get a phone. In your case, you're probably going to have your private devices that you're communicating with on your phones. So how do you get that information? Well, you're supposed to send those documents to Rudy if there's a public record request. And if you don't, and there's a subpoena that the AG's office does, and it comes up with things that you missed, they're going to ask you about that because they'll find them, and then they're going to call you in for a deposition to say, well, what about this one or this one? And you say, well, that was an accident. And it's like, oh, really? I mean, it could get that nasty.
Joel, question regarding the public record. So there were times when I was considering making amendments or additional conditions on a motion, and I'd be writing on the staff report that, adding that condition or altering or amending one of the conditions. Now, obviously, I would state that as part of the official public motion, but it was written down as that, the fact that the presumption is Rudy got that, would that be a public record?
Technically, if you wrote something down and it was in the commission, it was in the operation of this commission, yeah, that's a public record.
Okay.
You're supposed to give that over to Rudy after the item or at another time, but you're supposed to keep it. Definitely. Well,
Don't know that I did that.
I know it's a burden. But that is the law. Okay. Who can obtain them? Anybody can. They don't have to have a reason. They don't have to tell you the reason. They don't have to tell the city the reason. And if the city asks for a reason, boy, don't do that. When I was a greenhorn attorney, I did that and I got in trouble. You cannot do that. Public entities can charge a fee for each page. For commercial, it's 50 cents. For non-commercial, it's 25 cents. So even if they're electronic copies, we can charge per page. We can still do that. Someday the legislature is going to get rid of that ability for us to do. Yeah. The legislature does not like cities and towns. The majority does not right now. And so there's all sorts of things they do not like us doing, and that includes charging people for certain things, even though our taxpayers are paying for it. And it could be someone that's not even a resident. Going to miscellaneous cases, I'll let you read those. There's some really fascinating cases. And I think I'll let you read those. Unless you want me to read every one of these, I could do that. Okay, then let's move on. Parliamentary procedure. Well, tonight was a really good example of what parliamentary procedure is. When you picked your chair and vice chair, the principles that are set forth in the document that Rudy gave you, which this was drafted by me, Rudy, Larry, and Barb Kelly, probably like 2018, and it was taken from Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules is procedure. It was about this soldier who was ordered to go to a church meeting, and there was no procedure at all to run the meeting, and it was a total disaster. So Henry Martin Robert, that was the soldier, created a book and guidelines, and we're on the 11th edition now, I believe, and so this has gone through 2 decades. It was really meant for legislative bodies like Congress. And Congress adopted a more strict policy, of course, than we have. What we have it's a guideline. So if it's violated, it's not illegal to violate it. However, we're supposed to follow it. That's what the code, and I'm supposed to be the parliamentarian. I determine whether we follow certain rules under that guidebook. and I've been doing that since I got here. Now, some of the things in Robert's rules they don't even apply. And if you try to apply them, you'll be there all night long because it's just too difficult. So some cities and towns don't go by Robert's rules anymore. Especially in California, they are creating their own rules because they don't like Robert's rules. And eventually, everything that happens in California, like it or not, comes here. Recreational marijuana is one of them, okay? But a lot of things that start there do eventually end up here. So I think some cities and towns will probably make some of their own rules and get rid of Robert's rules completely. They don't have to follow it, but our city has chosen to do that. Even back, I think, even when the city was formed, they had that in their rule book. And the goals of having some procedure are set forth here. Decision-making is done by a majority vote. Every member of the voting body has equal rights and privileges to make motions, ask questions, speak, and vote. Minority views may be heard and considered. The process is simple and direct. There is no requirement to follow the basic motion rules. Generally, one question at a time is considered. And there's a few others on the other page. So tonight you made some motions. This was a good night because you got through a motion to continue, because that was a hard item. And you can continue when there's a reasonable basis. So easy to make the motion. I move to amend the motion by blank. I move to table the motion. I move to continue this matter until. I move for a blank minute recess, and it goes on. So it's really common sense. The nomination process, as I stated, is on the last page. It's more of a summary than what you saw tonight, but it's important to follow that when it comes to appointments. Also, well, we'll go to the code. We're going to go to the code of conduct now. There's some overlap, but I think it's time to do that. Okay. At the bottom, it says revised September 2020 or 2020. Well, that's not when this thing was written. This thing was written in 2018, and this went through at least 5 or 6 council meetings because it was up to the council to create this document. And I wrote the original one. I think it was 10 to 12 pages, and it's now 4 pages because council didn't want to have, they didn't want it that detailed, which is fine. It's their code of conduct. It applies to all of you also. This is not law, but it is a code of conduct that can be used, and you can be called out on it if someone wants to do that. So what does this do? Well, it gives residents confidence when they see an orderly meeting and everybody's being professional. That's what that's what most residents want to see. Some don't, but most of them do. They want to see that order. So you act in the public interest. You comply with the law, and you have professional conduct. This one, actually under Section 3, comes from the attorney professional rules of conduct. And this applies to public actors as yourself. So members shall conduct themselves above reproach and shall avoid even the appearance of impropriety. They should never act on a matter where their impartiality might reasonably be questioned, they have a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party or representatives thereof, a staff member or members of the public who support or oppose a party. They have personal knowledge of facts that are in dispute that would not be known by staff or the public at large. The question is whether their impartiality might be questioned from the perspective of a reasonable person. So that's pretty straightforward. Public meetings and due process. This is basically courtesy. Ask the chairperson, Mr. Chair, may I be recognized? That's what order is. That's what you're supposed to do, so you're not talking over each other. especially when you have contentious meetings when there's 60 or 80 people in here. You've got to have the order. Otherwise, it's out of control, and the meeting is going to go 5 to 6 hours or longer. Show respect for each other and also the chair. Advocacy. Members do not lose their First Amendment rights by virtue of becoming a member. Mr. Hanchey asked, hey, what if I have a conflict, but I want to now speak on that? Well, this says you don't lose your First Amendment rights, but you got to balance that. First Amendment versus appearance of impropriety, and you've been selected as a member representing the public. So which is it? You have to pick. You have to weigh it, and it's up to you to weigh it, no one else. Members shall refrain from attempting to influence other members' position. We talked about that also, especially when there's a conflict, you can't. But unless such communications and discussions are heard in public at a regularly scheduled public meeting. That goes back to the open meeting law. You're supposed to have everything in public, except if it's a confidentiality thing. There's other exceptions for executive session. Non-interference with and treatment of staff. There's been occasions where staff members have been horribly treated by some council members and some board members going back a number of years. That should not be allowed. You have professionals here. I think I said this last night to the Board of Adjustment. With those two gentlemen, you have like 75 years of experience. Right?
Number's getting higher, Joel.
Okay.
You don't want to talk about it, okay.
Well, I think it's close. 40 for you and 35 for you, right?
Yeah, we got to count on our toes.
Okay. So when you have that kind of experience level, don't look at it and say, so what? You know, they're older than 20, so they don't have what I want. Well, that's not how you should look at it, because their experience level on all the rules and regulations that are in the books, they know them. And you should at least listen to them. You may not agree with the interpretation, but listen to them, respect them. Oh, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Rudy. But I think I'm going to go this other way, and we're going to split this property into 10 pieces instead of 3. I mean, you can do that too. No gifts. Watch out for gifts. You know, you're not going to see that too much. But you know, you might with the state trust land. You're going to see a lot of things in the next 8 to 12 months. And you might have developers calling you up saying, hey, I got some great tickets. This is after COVID is gone, which COVID will be over within a week, I was told, you know.
I've heard that rumor.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a rumor.
What COVID?
So COVID's over, and now you can go to games. So they might have a great ticket for you, a great seat. Hey, and by the way, we're putting in this center in your city. And, you know, I just wanted to talk to you about it. Well, probably don't want to do that. I think the average is $25. So whatever the gift is, if it's more than 25, that's a violation of at least state law. Or state legislators, they're not supposed to take anything above $25. Meeting distractions. I didn't bring my phone tonight. I'm glad, because the damn thing went off last night, right at the end. And it was turned on, and I never get a call from anybody. But I did last night, and it was embarrassing. I was going through the rule, and the damn thing rings. Keep your phones off. You're supposed to be paying attention to the meeting. And some people say, well, I could look at 25 things on my phone and talk to people at the same time at the meeting. No, you can't. You can say you can, but you're probably not paying attention to whoever's speaking. And that is a distraction. And you're not giving the public what they really should have, which is your full attention. That's why you are here. Influencing elections. No member shall attempt to influence an election using their elected or appointed status, nor shall use public facilities, public meetings, or staff to accomplish such act. Well, this is a little late, but because the election's over, well, I think it's over. I don't know if it is, but you're not.
Yeah.
Some states are. No member shall attempt to influence. So as a board and commission member, you're not supposed to be doing that in any form. So before the election, if you were going, I don't know, on social media and say, hey, you need to vote for this person. I'm a P&Z member, and this person would be great for council. Well, you can't use your position to do that. If you don't say I'm a P&Z member, okay. But some people still say, well, I know that person. That's the chair. Why is he doing that? And so, once again, appearance of impropriety. You got to always look at that. Communication with litigants. This one at council was highly debated when we went through this. And I think this went through at least 3 revisions by itself. Developer comes and says, someone sues the city. And now that litigant wants to talk to 4 members of the council, or 3 and then 4 and then get support. It's improper for council members to do that. First of all, it's probably going to be an executive session item. There's going to be items that are discussed in executive session that will affect the city's financial position on cases. And you shouldn't be talking to litigants. If you know they have sued the city, you should not be talking to them or associating with them, because it's going to look bad. That's one thing. Are you going to shut off my speaker?
No, you were thirsty.
Okay, thank you.
Talking a lot.
Well, not as long as 978 East Roosevelt. Sorry, Larry. But thank you. Very kind of you. Criticism of staff, that has come up also. And once again, I've kind of covered that. These are professionals. Attendance at meetings. If you're not going to make it, call Rudy. Not going to make it tonight, Rudy. Okay, thank you. We'll write this down as an excused absence. If you don't do that, it's unexcused. And after 3, technically, staff could go to the council and say, hey, this person has not been here, has missed 3 meetings. Technically, the council could knock them off under the code. They could knock them off anyway, but the code specifically says after 3 attendance, the council can do that. General rules of decorum, we kind of talked about that. Personal attacks, be polite to speakers, dress professionally. Also, electronic devices, try to avoid to use those during the meeting. Incompatibility of office. Okay, Mr. Gage, I'm going to use you as an example because you are the easiest one to use on this. You are on the sewer board. Mm-hmm. So, is that incompatible with your duties here? No, it is not. Is that, being on this commission, is that incompatible with Board of Adjustment? Yes, it is. Because Board of Adjustment, you decide variances and decisions of these 2 gentlemen. That's why it's very difficult to be on this at the same time as the Board of Adjustment. Another good example, school board. Is school board, this is a fascinating one, because there's an attorney general position about it. Can a member of the council be on the school board? The answer is yes. But sometimes you'd say, well, wait, no, that doesn't feel right. Well, no, there's an attorney general position that says, hey, different entities, different financial situation, different funding, and also school board members, the most important part, they're not paid. So because they're not paid, there's definitely no conflict. That's how the AG came down on that one, and that's an old decision. Okay, quasi-judicial capacities, that's the Board of Adjustment, so we don't really well, I will talk about conditional use permits. Your decision on that is final unless it gets appealed. If it doesn't get appealed, it's final. And so people have to live with it. So there's been situations where people weren't happy with certain conditional use permits, and they'd appeal to the council. But if they didn't appeal, it's done, and your decision stands. They can't go to court. If they did not appeal to the council and they waited 30 days, too bad. They can't. It'll be dismissed in court because there's no jurisdiction in the court because they waived jurisdiction by not going to the council for an appeal. Now, that's the law says if the city has 100,000 people or more, then the decision for Board of Adjustment, sorry, Rudy, you're looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? For Board of Adjustment, if it's 100,000 or more in the community, then the decision it can go to the council from the Board of Adjustment. But in this city, we have less than 100,000, so no, that has to be appealed to Superior Court. So once we hit 100,000, which that may happen with the state land stuff in the next 10, 20 years maybe, who knows? People are coming here. And so then we're going to have 100,000 people, and now, big whoopee. Now the council can hear Board of Adjustment items of appeals. How about that? Legal training, well, you're doing that right now. And also, I think, Larry, is it Thursday for training? Yep. Mm-hmm. At the league, it's a Zoom, right? Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. So I don't know who's taking advantage of that, but that's a good session. In fact, the city attorney for Marana, he just retired. Frank Cassidy is a great attorney, and he's going to teach part of that class. He's excellent. Staff recommendations. Members should not take staff recommendations lightly. You can disagree with the decision, but remember, they are trained to do this stuff. They've seen hundreds and thousands of cases, probably. And so you need to look at the recommendations and really consider them. So with that, if you have any questions, it's time.
Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Joel. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And call me anytime. That's my direct line. And so that's in your packet. And I talk to everybody.
Okay. His car's here till all hours of the night, so I guess, yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on. Old business. Nope. Larry, any old business? No. Information and reports. I don't have any information or reports. Director's report? Any?
I don't have anything other, again, this training, if you miss it or need to sign up for a different one or another one, let us know. We'll keep you abreast of those. But now it's offered a lot because there is a transition in elected leadership and boards and commissions, and so there are others that will come up. We'll certainly let you know.
Okay, thank you. All right, then next we are looking at selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose. Do I have a motion?
Chairman Heck?
Sure.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on November 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there is no items to be brought forward to the commission, these meetings may be canceled, notifications of cancellation properly posted, and the commission notified by staff.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good, okay. Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. If hearing no other business or concerns, I adjourn this meeting at 8:54.